Have you ever felt spiritually awake, but maybe just a little bit stuck, maybe secretly stuck? Like you've had glimpses of expansion, right? And maybe you've even had downloads that shook your sense of self. Maybe you've even had mystical experiences, but then you find yourself circling through the same old cycles, the same old patterns, and maybe you felt weighed down by the same heaviness that you felt before. I know I have. And I feel like what you're experiencing is kind of a residue of the original wound of separation. So today we're going to go deep into this wound and actually bring through some occult teachings, some mystical teachings, Kabbalah teachings, Gnostic texts, and the Bible. And I'm going to show you how to heal this wound through God consciousness, or at least open up to the idea of healing that wound. I'm also going to talk about some daily tools to embody the shift in your own life because I feel like every step forward helps with that shift. And we need to know how to put it into practical ways, right? It's almost like, let's be about what we're talking about. So, the original wound of separation, it's primal ache that humanity carries, the sense that we are cut off or separate from God consciousness, from divinity, from source, from the all, from the infinite, whatever you want to call it. We're cut off or separated from love itself, from each other. And many times we're left feeling like we're separate from our own selves. How many of you have felt that before? Separate, you're a million miles away from you. And it takes a while to get grounded back into the oneness of even the body itself. I feel like it's not just personal trauma that we're talking about here. I feel like this is cosmic trauma. So let's take a look at it from different teachings from around the world. You know, in the biblical layer, we have in Genesis that Adam, and Eve or Eva ate from the tree of knowledge. Many believe that that was humanity's fall. But if you take a look just a little bit deeper, I don't feel like it was about punishment. I feel like it was about forgetfulness, maybe forgetfulness of gnosis, of knowledge in itself. And before they walked with God in the garden, naked and unashamed, afterwards, what did they do? They covered themselves. They felt the shame. They felt apart. They felt separate. Shame is always the signature of separation. It whispers things like, I am not enough. I am unworthy. I am outside of love. I'm not deserving of that. But God frequency, consciousness itself, never abandoned humanity. It only wanted to evolve, consciousness evolution. Humanity only began to believe that it had been abandoned. The wound is not fact, it's a deception, it is a perception. That separation wound. And I don't know how many of you have felt, oh man, I have an abandonment wound. Where did this come from? And maybe you have tried to dig into that layer of yourself. I feel abandoned. I feel abandoned. I feel abandoned. And you're scraping at scraps of love that's given to you because of that abandonment wound, not really realizing the truth that you are energy, love itself, God frequency itself. So, what about the Gnostic layer? You know, in Gnosticism, the story begins with Sophia, the divine wisdom. And out of longing, which we see repetitively in mythology stories, that longing, that desire, Sophia wound up creating without her counterpart, and the creation birthed a shadow, an imperfect reflection known as the demiurge. And the demiurge was unaware of source, so it declared itself the only one real and true God and built worlds from illusion. Humanity trapped in these worlds forgot its divine origin, the oneness. And so in Gnosticism, the wound of separation is kind of like the forgetting of where we came from. It's spiritual amnesia, really. And then if we take a look at Kabbalah, the wound is described as the shattering of the vessels. When divine light poured into creation, the vessel meant to hold it, but broke under the intensity, and the shards became matter, and the sparks of God scattered within. So I just want to note here that no matter how you look at the version of consciousness, we are that creation. We are those sparks. We are those fragments. Each one of us carrying both memory and the amnesia. The wound of separation itself is the overall experience of fragmentation while carrying the memory of wholeness. And that's what we strive to reactivate, that memory of wholeness, that memory of unity, divinity, consciousness of wholeness itself. So, just take a long, hard look at the bigger picture of that idea of wholeness. And can you see the texture of the separation or the abandonment wound in all of these teachings? If we look on the note of a psychological layer, on like a human level, the wound is mirrored in birth. A baby leaves the womb, the first paradise, if you will, and it enters into a world of air and hunger and need and desire and longing, right? In our nervous systems, we tend to hold this imprint. I was once one, now I am two. I am separate. And every abandonment, every betrayal, every unmet need reinforces that wound. It makes it come alive. At least that's what I've experienced. Now, on like an occult and mystical layer, the mystical traditions call it the veil of Maya, the great illusion that blinds us from truth. And it convinces us that we are just body, just mind, just story. But true knowing, true gnosis reveals that we are actually awareness, awareness behind it all, awareness itself. The separation is like a veil, not reality. And the wound is a story, which many of us grasp onto. And we latch onto that wound, we latch onto that story, not our true essence. So here's the core truth. You were never, ever separate. You only believed that you were. And that's what changes everything. Consciousness creates, right? And consciousness creates energy. And energy is consciousness. Well, guess what? You are both. And that means that healing and manifestation are the exact same thing. Healing is like the manifestation of wholeness, and manifestation is the healing of lack. And both are consciousness evolving, which is what we are doing and what consciousness in itself is doing. The need to evolve, heal, manifest, one and the same. But consciousness itself needs clarity. It needs new coding. It needs new frameworks. It needs new patterns. Otherwise, what do you think happens? It just repeats the old ones. It continues to cycle through. So it needs clear direction. And that's why so many of us wind up feeling stuck. Even though we're awake and we're expanding, it's an awakening without recoding is kind of like operating a new computer, but still running some old software. It's not evolving. It needs direction. It needs a path laid out. So moving forward in God consciousness, we can actually take a look at Yeshua said in the Gospel of Thomas, split a piece of wood and I am there. Lift the stone and you will find me there. So I feel like in its totality, that is God consciousness. It's not somewhere far away. It's in everything, everywhere, always in you. In Hermeticism, the principle of correspondence says, as above, so below, as within, so without. So what does that mean? That actually means that your inner patterns are mirroring, or vice versa, your outer world. If you want to move forward, you don't need to strive harder. You need to actually realign with your inner frequency and truth of who you are, truth of God consciousness. So I said I was going to give you some daily tools that you can use to start repairing the separation wound. So it can be as simple as things like a morning affirmation or a morning prayer to yourself, placing your hand on your heart and saying and feeling the power and the intensity of, I am not separate. I am a breath of God. Today, I create from God frequency. I create from unity, oneness, and wholeness. Didn't that feel powerful? As you go about your day, you can do like frequency check-ins with yourself. What frequency am I in? Self, hey, self, how you feeling? What do you align to? Are we in the frequency of separation or are we in the frequency of connection? And if you're in the alignment of separation, take a moment, pause, find a spot for 5 minutes. That's all it takes. Feel that connection, breathe and realign with wholeness, with connection. You can also do some journaling techniques to where, each night you write down the patterns that you see throughout your day. Write down the things that you are proud of that you've seen shift because you chose an alignment of oneness, because you chose an alignment of wholeness. Today you can write, hey, today I chose trust over fear. I chose not to worry. I chose to believe. Those are powerful, powerful shifts that are small, but they're so massive to the overall repairing of that separation. You can do embodiment practice to where you kind of move the energy within your body. You move your body as prayer itself. Dance, walk, stretch the hips. I'm telling you, you have no idea how much you hold in the hips. So if you can get them moving, that energy is going to surge. It is going to be in a flow. But as you're doing it, do it with an awareness that your movement is a union with God frequency, with consciousness itself. It's not just an exercise. You are even in that moment in a state of co-creation, a state of flow, and a state of surrender. And that is quite beautiful. You can also do sacred stillness moments to where you just take 5 minutes daily in silence. You can do 5 minutes, you can do 30 minutes, you can do an hour, you can do 12 hours. I mean, it's whatever you intuitively feel. In Gnostic tradition, kenosis means emptying, pouring out, dissolving into source. You'll feel it. You'll know when you're there. You will feel the hum of that divinity itself. And you'll begin to understand and notice and realize and see and feel for yourself that you were never, ever separate from that. So if you feel awakened, spiritually awake, but secretly stuck, just know this. You're not losing anything. You're not stuck in the mud. You're not failing. I feel like we need to rephrase that and say, you know what? I'm standing at a threshold right now. The awakening is showing you a door. And God consciousness invites you in. And you step through it and you choose your frequency. You recode your patterns. You heal the wound. Because in truth, it really boils down to that core truth that you were never separate. You only believed that you were. And when you remember that, consciousness expands. You expand. Creation flows. And you become what you've always been, a living expression of God itself. Yeah, beautiful. So if this message spoke to you, I would love for you to subscribe. Share it with someone else who's walking a similar path. Maybe you've heard them say, oh, I feel stuck. Maybe just a shift in the way of viewing this is all it really takes to release and surrender that idea of being stuck and get into the flow of co-creation with God consciousness itself. And let me know in the comments too. Where do you feel the wound of separation most in your life right now? Is it outside of you? Is it in the body? Where are you experiencing this wound of separation? Awakening is just simply a beginning. I think that embodiment is the key. It's the key that unlocks that doorway. It's the key that unlocks that path to evolving, growing, and learning and expanding. And the truth of who you really are. Yeah. So I'll see you next time.